guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a worth the buy or not on some new Huda beauty products that have caught my eye. I wanted to test out their new matte primer. So we're going to be testing out their matte primer as well as their baking powder. So quick little story. I actually filmed this video yesterday and I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I got all the right products. I'm ahead of schedule. I'm filming a day early. So tomorrow I can just go ahead and edit. And guess what? I'm so thankful that I posted a picture of the products on my Instagram. And then one of my lovely subscribers was like, can you review the matte primer? And I was like, that is the matte primer. And she was like, I think that's the original primer. And I was like, wait, what? So I went on Sephora.com and I was looking at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got the wrong primer. So I was literally trying that primer out as if I was trying out the mattifying primer. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. I'm insane. I need to go back and exchange this. Now I have the right products. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start off with, it is called the Matte Perfection Pre-Makeup Base Huda Beauty Primer. This does retail $32. So the original primer is $35. And then this mattifying primer is $32. I don't know why there's a price difference there, if it's probably the same amount of product. It has 1.01 ounces in here for $32. And I think the other one had the same amount. So I don't know what the price difference is there, but that's how much it is. And then the baking powder is $34. So let's go ahead and just get into it. So we're just gonna go ahead and open the primer. Ooh, it looks like this. This is actually kind of different than what I'm used to. The other primer had a pump. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is we are going to apply primer only on one side of the face. On the other side of the face, we're not gonna apply anything. And that's just so that we can really see if there's a difference between priming and not priming. Ooh, this seems very liquidy and the color is kind of like throwing me off a little bit. It just looks weird. Usually primers that I use that are mattifying are like a more gel, like almost like super duper dense consistency. They're not so runny and like almost, I don't know. This doesn't seem like my typical mattifying primer, but we will see. We will see. Now it's actually staying in place. It looks like candle wax. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring you guys closer so you guys can see if there's a difference. So now we're really up and close and personal, and I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of warm up the product. I always like to do that in the back of my hand. It feels very, very like watery. It doesn't feel like my typical matte primer. It also has kind of like a fragrancy scent. It does feel different than the regular original Huda Beauty Primer. That one feels a little bit more creamy, like almost moisturizer. It doesn't feel like too watery like this. But this consistency is very different than what I expected. And I kind of like the fact that it's not so thick or like too drying, because sometimes those primers, for people that don't have really, really oily skin but want that more mattifying finish, it can break apart really easily. So maybe for like that reasoning, this is probably a good choice. Okay, so while we examine this and we see like the difference of no primer to primer, I'm gonna quickly read the claims. It's supposed to be an oil-free mattifying makeup base, instant anti-shine, blurs the appearance of pores, smooth and comfortable on the skin. Like I mentioned, I did appreciate the fact that this is more of a like runny consistency. It's not so thick, because I feel like it does feel comfortable on the skin. I know with some mattifying primers, especially the Becca one, I don't know if you guys have tried Becca, but their mattifying primer is super duper thick. Like you have to really kind of like warm it up in the back of your hand and then apply it, because if not, it's going to just be a hot mess. And unless you have really oily skin, that's not going to look good on you. It says that it's supposed to minimize the appearance of pores and blur them. Yeah, definitely blur them a little bit. Nothing too intense. I can still see them right here. It's nothing like, oh my God, I'm like wowed. But I definitely feel like it kind of reduced it compared to this side. I also feel like it did reduce the shine. I'm not seeing shine, which is fantastic. That's always what you want when you get a mattifying primer. You can see the big difference between this side to this side. Also, for some reason, whenever I apply primer, just any primer, I feel like I can see the difference in my redness. I feel like when I apply primer on one side, it looks a little bit less red than the side that doesn't have anything on. So we're gonna put the primer to the side. So far, I think it feels good and it looks good. And you get a good standard size in here. I think for $32, the size is pretty good. So now we're gonna move on to our foundation. So we're gonna be using another Huda Beauty product. This is one of my favorite foundations ever. This is the Huda Beauty Faux Filter. And I'm just going to be pumping out that much of product. This is in the shade Baklava. If you guys watch my videos, you know that this is one of my favorite foundations, especially when you're looking for a good mattifying foundation. This is what you want to use. So we're just going to begin applying that all over. And I have to say, this foundation is already a pretty matte product overall. So I'm definitely gonna see if it complements it or if it looks any more matte or if it stays matte longer than the side where we do not use the primer. Now, I really quickly wanna touch on primer. I know some of you guys who may not wear primer and are kind of like, what's the fuss with primer? Like, why is it so important? And I always told clients this when I used to work at Sephora. Look at primer as a base between your skin and your foundation. You don't want to ever put something directly on there, especially because foundation is great and all, like it gives you a beautiful finish and everything, but depending on the foundation you use, and even with any foundation, I feel like it's always kind of harsh on your skin to just put it straight on the skin. Also, longevity. If you're somebody that's looking for your foundation to last and you don't wear primer and you're always wondering why doesn't this foundation last, it's probably because you're not priming. You're not using something that will make that foundation really lock into place, which is why a lot of primers that are tacky, that feel sticky, tend to be great because they help that foundation stick on in place and not budge. So this is the difference right away. You can see that I'm completely covered here. We really went only with one pump of this. That's how full coverage and great this is. So that was easy to apply. It blended out very nicely. The product, it worked well with the primer. I know sometimes with some primers, when you're blending it, it's not working together as a team. But that's why I always say it's always good to try foundations with their complementary primer because they usually work the best. So that's just something to note, especially for my ladies who only have like one foundation or only want to invest in one foundation. If you're gonna buy a foundation from that brand, you should probably also check out their primers and see which one works best for you because it's always to use complementary. On the other side, we're gonna begin blending. Okay, so on this side, I feel like it looks a little bit more sheer than the other side as we're applying it. Like you can still see some redness. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to bring the mirror closer to me now that we've applied it on both sides and see if there's a big difference. And we can go ahead and start analyzing the primer. Okay, so we're up close. Okay, I feel like on the side where we're not wearing primer, my texture looks a little tiny bit more enhanced than on the side where I am wearing primer. I also feel like it went on a little bit more smooth and faster on the side where we were wearing primer. Okay, I feel like the side where we have primer, it looks a little bit more matte than the side where we don't have primer, especially when I go up close. I feel like this has a little bit more of like a radiance to it than this side. I feel like this side looks more matte and in place. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is I'm gonna finish the rest of my makeup and also show you guys how I use the Easy Bake Loose Powder by Huda Beauty and what my thoughts are on this. And we can go ahead and get our day started, so stay tuned. Okay, so I am back. Now we're gonna move on to the baking powder. And we are just gonna talk about this briefly and then kind of put it on and test it out. So I actually have been hearing so many mixed things about this powder, good things and really bad things. I know that there's a huge controversy going on with this powder with the whole Beauty Bakery brand and how Huda Beauty stole promo for it, that it was very, very similar to the Beauty Bakery brand's promo and how they do things. I don't know, I feel like nowadays with brands, you just see so much weird shit going on, like a lot of sketchy stuff. So I wanted to try it out because a lot of you guys recommended this to me and were like, I want you to test it on your channel. So I decided to give it a try. But I do have to say, I did review this in the first clip that I did, and I actually tested it out yesterday when I tried filming the video. And this morning, I woke up and I had an itch under my eye. Right now, you can't see it. On both sides. I will insert some pictures so you guys can see what it looks like without makeup, but my eyes are really itchy and I'm like, why are they itchy? I'm actually kind of under the weather right now, so I was like, maybe it's because I'm feeling sick and that's why they feel this way. But then I looked in the mirror and I'm like, oh my god, there's like bumps under my eyes. The only thing that I changed yesterday was the baking powder I used. I used this one. So I'm gonna test it out today again because I wanna show you guys how it works on camera, and we can kind of evaluate if the powder is causing that issue, because clearly if it is, I don't want you guys to purchase this because you guys might have the same reaction as me. Also, another thing that people were complaining about was that it was a really strong scent. Now, I don't have an issue with strong scents just because my Airspun powder is a pretty strong scent. If you guys have tried Airspun, you know what I'm talking about. But now that I think about it, maybe the scent of this powder is what irritated my under eyes. I've never had an issue with the Airspun scent irritating my under eyes, but maybe that's what it could be. It smells just like the foundation if you've tried the Huda Beauty foundation. And for you guys who may be wondering why you're applying it if it irritated your eyes, it's just like, it doesn't burn or hurt. If it was burning, I would definitely not be applying it again, but it's just feeling a little bit itchy. And I don't know 100% if it's the powder, but I have a feeling it is because that's the only thing I've changed, unless it's because I got sick. But we'll find out later today. If it's still causing me itchiness, then it's probably the powder. I'm gonna take my Laura Mercier Flawless Fusion Ultra Longwear Concealer. The reason I'm using this concealer today is because this is more of a lightweight consistency. This is in the shade 3W. Then I'm gonna be taking my other Morphe sponge, which I use to bake. I like to use sponges instead of brushes. I feel like brushes don't really do the whole job for me. I feel like sponges really lock it into place and really like let that bake perfectly. I'm gonna be taking a little bit of this Blondie and just going in right where my crease is. Now, what I'm noticing today, and I noticed yesterday, of this powder, as soon as I applied it, I feel like it like locks in and it feels a little bit drying. I feel like this wouldn't be the best product for people that have dry skin. I would say stay away from it because it is a more drying powder. I feel like because I have oily skin, and for my oily skin girls who can handle that and they want it to kind of like soak up all that oil that there may be, it's a great thing. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put a little bit of powder on my smile lines because that's where I get very oily through the day. Now, another thing that I really look for in a powder is that it won't give me a cakey finish on top of my foundation. If I find a powder that gives me cakey finish, I'm automatically like, nope. Okay, so now we have the powder on and we look all sorts of crazy. It does feel a little bit drying right now compared to my other powders that I own by MAC, the Patrick Star one, and the Airspun. Those do not feel this way. I'm quickly gonna go ahead and discuss the price. This does retail for $34, and in here you have 0.71 ounces. So in the Airspun you have 3.4 ounces, and then the Patrick Star MAC one you have 1 ounce. So you get less product in the Huda Beauty, not by too much with the MAC one, but definitely less product, and it is, I think, pricier than the MAC one. Definitely way pricier than the Airspun, because the Airspun is like $5 at Walmart. So what I'm gonna do now, because this one's been sitting for a while, I'm going to go ahead and dust this off. So let's keep in mind this is the side with the primer, and we're still gonna talk about the primer really briefly before we go. Now I have to say, just very first impression after removing the powder, it looks very perfected, very airbrushed. I have to say the under eye doesn't look dry, doesn't look cakey, it looks perfect. Also this side looks very perfected. It doesn't look dry. It's not enhancing my texture. I know that with some baking powders and foundations, as soon as you lock it into place, it starts to really enhance your texture, and it also starts to look very cakey, but this actually looks very airbrushed. So now let's do the side that doesn't have any primer on. Okay, do you see, I don't know if you guys can see, but on this side where we don't have primer on, I feel like you can see the separation between the foundation and then where the powder was. Do you see that right there? I hope you guys can see that. There's a separation. Here you can't see it. It like blends in seamlessly. Okay, let's go ahead and remove this. Okay. That you can see some of the separation of the powder with the foundation. It's kind of like looking a little dry in this area, like the under eye area. I see the dryness right there that I don't see here. I don't see that dryness here, but I see it on this eye. So I feel like it has to be the primer. The fact that we don't have any primer down here or any base. I want to see how the baking powder Blondie does with flashback. Okay, so I feel like looking at this picture, I do see a little bit of flashback with this powder, I have to say. This side of my face looks really nice and perfected, to be completely honest. Like, it looks really good. The left side of my face, where we don't have primer, the area where I baked looks like a hot mess. Like, there's some separation from the powder to the foundation to the rest of the face. It looks dry, it looks kind of flaky. I'm just not feeling it. So that's just something that I'm noticing right away. So we're gonna have to see how this continues to do, because that's not okay. I wouldn't want you guys to go out with like this situation, like flaking off, looking dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and carry on for the rest of my day, and then I will be back at the end of the day to give you guys my final thoughts on these new Huda Beauty products. Okay guys, so I am back. Let's see what time it is. It is now 9:47 p.m. and I've officially worn this foundation for the whole day with the primer, with the powder, and I have my final thoughts ready for you guys. So as you guys know, if you guys watched the first half of the video, this side was the side that I had the primer on. This side was the side that I did not have the primer on, and you can see a difference. You can see that this side held up a little bit better than this side. This side, there's not really much shine, like all over my face, just around my nose area. There is a little bit of areas where I feel like it is kind of like separating a touch, and I feel like if I would have had primer on here, it wouldn't have gotten oily around my nose. Now moving on to the other side, as you can see, it looks really good, really in place. The only part where I have a little bit of oil is literally right here along my nose, but everywhere it looks fantastic. Like, it really looks good. So I have to say, I think the primer, for mattifying purposes, I think it does make a difference. I think you can see a more matte formula in here. You can see that the products stay a little bit more matte with the primer than without the primer. I also like the fact that this consistency is kind of more of a like liquidy consistency. It's not so thick and drying, so therefore I feel like different types of skin types can wear this if they're looking for that matte finish. It's not just totally geared towards people that have oily skin. I also feel like for 1.01 ounces, you get a full standard size, and you're paying $32 or $31, one of those two, which for a primer at Sephora isn't too bad. Also, you get 12 months of use out of this until you have to throw it out because it expires once opened, of course. So I do think that this spoke true to the claims. The only one that I didn't feel like I saw a big difference or didn't really see much was for the minimizing pores. I feel like my Tatcha Silk Canvas does so much better with minimizing pores. So maybe what I could do is use them together. Now I want to talk about the powder. So the powder is a different story. This side creased even though we baked it, which never happens when I use my other two powders that I'm obsessed with. Never ever happened. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this powder. I feel like for $34, you can pass on this and just use what you have or try something else. I just feel like it didn't really like do wonders for me. Still, the areas where I went ahead and baked right here, it still had the little oil peek through. I have powders that are so much better than that. So I just feel like this isn't worth a buy whatsoever. Those are my final thoughts. I really hope that you guys enjoyed watching this video. I really went in and dissected a lot of these two Huda Beauty products for you guys and tried to give you the best opinions and the best information that I could so that you can go ahead and come up with your own conclusions and figure out which one's worth it for you and which one's not. So if you guys have any other recommendations on primers you want to see me review, then please go ahead and let me know. I'm always down for a good primer review, especially if it's mattifying or long wearing or pore minimizing. That is my cup of tea. So that being said, please don't forget to subscribe because I would love for you to become a member of our family here on YouTube. I wouldn't want you guys to miss my videos for the world, and I just want to reach 20,000 subscribers. I want us to do the damn thing, and I know that we can do it, and I have faith in us. So I'll be seeing you guys very, very soon for a brand new video. Bye guys, don't forget to like my video.